This is Arkies in the Beltway, your look at national politics and the Arkansans influencing the discussions. I'm Alex Thomas, Washington Correspondent for the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette, reporting from the nation's capital. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Arkies in the Beltway for the week of February 9th, 2025. It was a busy first week of February on Capitol Hill, with the Senate and House of Representatives continuing their shared quick pace from January. The first committee hearings of the 119th Congress happened in both chambers. Multiple Arkansans spent time last week before lawmakers, hoping to provide valuable insight that could impact public policy. The Senate Agriculture, Nutrition, and Forestry Committee held its first hearing of a series focused on the state of the agricultural economy. Among those participating in last Wednesday's panel, Nathan Reed of Marianna and Jennifer James of Newport. Reed appeared before the senators representing the National Cotton Council Board of Directors. He most recently served as president of the Agricultural Council of Arkansas. James is involved with USA Rice, serving on its board of directors and Farmers Board of Directors. Speaking before the senators, James acknowledged the current financial challenges facing farmers, and not just those specializing in rice cultivation.
Nothing in my area pencils out. This is not economically sustainable. Last year, I completed my 30th full-time crop, and it was the most difficult year financially that I have endured so far. This year, I'm even more worried about what is to come.
Senators organized the hearing as lawmakers hope this year can be the year they finally pass a new multi-year farm bill. That legislative package authorizes agriculture, nutrition assistance, and rural development programs. Producers have been operating under the standing 2018 law, which includes outdated risk management programs that have not been adjusted for increasing input cost. Finalizing a legislative package is a shared priority among Republicans and Democrats alike, but lawmakers struggled in the last Congress to overcome differences on nutrition programs and conservation dollars. Congress has until September 30th to pass a new farm bill. The Senate and House did approve $31 billion in economic assistance and agriculture disaster relief in December, that money part of an end-of-year measure averting a government shutdown. Reed thanked senators for this funding, but said even if the federal government expedites the delivery of this money, some operations may still go under.
To prevent farms from failing, producers need the multi-year certainty that only a new farm bill can provide.
James said farmers cannot produce more crops to get themselves out of their financial straits, forcing families like hers to have difficult conversations about the future.
Just last week, we had one of the hardest business decision conversations my family's had. Is farming really worth it? What scares me is I know that we're only one farm family of thousands are having these same conversations.
Senator John Bozeman of Rogers leads the Senate Agriculture Committee. He said the current environment has left farmers exposed to what he described as economic ruin.
If we fail to modernize the safety net, agriculture will see further consolidation as farm families leave the business, and the ripple effects to our country will be truly profound.
Talks on the next farm bill are happening in the background of President Donald Trump's first days back in the White House. The president has paused the implementation of 25% tariffs on goods from Canada and Mexico, the United States' largest trading partners. Such tariffs could have a significant impact on U.S. agriculture producers. In one case, a majority of consumed potash, a key ingredient in fertilizer, is imported from Canada. On the other side of the Capitol, Representative Frenchville of Little Rock has started his push to, as he puts it, make community banking great again. The former head of Delta Trust and Banking already made it clear he wants to address local banking needs as the chair of the House Financial Services Committee. The committee's first hearing last Wednesday put a focus on these financial institutions. Hill said the United States financial sector is unique from its international counterparts.
Most countries have just a handful of large national banks, but the United States has a large and diverse banking system with thousands of banks from small and regional institutions to global money center banks that all coexist and work together with each other to meet the capital access needs and depository needs of our Americans.
The number of financial institutions in the United States has declined since Hill helped open Delta Trust and Banking nearly 3 decades ago. In 1999, the United States had nearly 8,600 insured commercial banks. The U.S. ended 2023 with around 4,000 of these institutions. Much like with the previously mentioned Senate Agriculture Committee hearing, 2 Arkansans provided testimony to House members, Eagle Bank and Trust Company Executive Chair Cathy Owen and Arkansas State Bank Department Commissioner Sussanah Marshall. Owen said commercial banking has become more difficult in recent years. She argued community banks are burdened by federal regulations that are implemented without considering an institution's size and capital.
If a community bank can't thrive, then we can't serve that community. We can't buy the school uniforms. We can't supply food for the food pantries. We can't provide the financial education. We can't make the loans that are necessary for those communities.
Marshall said if rural communities are going to thrive, then the federal government needs to tailor banking regulations.
A healthy economy means that all consumers, no matter where they live, have access to a broad array of financial services. Community banks are central to this mission.
Hill and House Republicans have proposed several pieces of legislation aimed at increasing flexibility for these community banks. Bozeman and Hill helping launch a bicameral working group focused on passing digital asset legislation. The Arkansans joined Pennsylvania Representative G.T. Thompson, South Carolina Senator Tim Scott, and White House cryptocurrency czar David Sachs in launching the group last week. Bozeman and Hill's committees have overlapping jurisdictions as it relates to matters involving commodities and securities, which includes digital assets like cryptocurrencies. Hill telling reporters it's not just Republicans who want to get something done.
Bicameral support this year is dynamic because last year in the 118th Congress, we had success on a bipartisan basis in the House on both stablecoin legislation moving out of the House Financial Services Committee and for the regulatory framework moving across the House floor with a strong bipartisan vote. 71 Democrats joined House Republicans in moving that policy forward.
President Trump signed an executive order back on January 23rd, creating his own working group to study digital asset markets. As mentioned, Bozeman and Hill's committees have shared jurisdiction as it relates to digital assets. If you've been following Arkies in the Beltway in recent months, then you have heard stories concerning Arkansas' sway in the 119th Congress. 5 Arkansans serve in committee chair roles. There's Bozeman and Hill, as previously mentioned. Senator Tom Cotton of Little Rock leads the Senate Intelligence Committee, and Representative Rick Crawford of Jonesboro holds the gavel on the House counterpart. Representative Bruce Westerman of Hot Springs is in his second term presiding over the House Natural Resources Committee. John C. Davis is a teaching associate professor of political science at the University of Arkansas. He says Arkansas hasn't had this kind of influence on Capitol Hill in decades.
I think it harkens back in a way to Arkansas in the middle 20th century when several of our members of Congress held seniority and were Democrats, and that was the party at the time that almost always held majorities in Congress.
Those members include individuals like Senator William Fulbright, who presided over the Senate Foreign Relations Committee for 15 years, and Representative Wilbur Mills, who led the House Ways and Means Committee for 16 years. Davis says Arkansas's current lawmakers are being rewarded with committee chairmanships for multiple reasons. This includes seniority on Capitol Hill and their dedication to advancing their party's priorities.
We're at that point now where the confluence of partisanship, majority status, and tenure are definitely working to the advantage of members of Congress in Arkansas and Arkansans broadly.
There is one Arkansas lawmaker who is not serving as a committee chair in this Congress. Representative Steve Womack of Rogers is a House Cardinal, a senior House Appropriations Committee member. He is responsible for overseeing the subcommittee handling funding on transportation, housing, and urban development matters. Womack did lead the House Budget Committee throughout 2018. He says being a committee chair often requires reviewing legislation from a broad perspective.
It doesn't change what you do for your state. It just puts you at a more macro level, which eventually does help your state if you're in pursuit of the right policies.
The last Arkansan to serve as a Senate committee chair before this Congress, Democrat Blanche Lincoln. Lincoln led the Senate Agriculture Committee, but she lost her gavel after Bozeman defeated her in the 2010 midterm election cycle. As President Trump and the Republican-led Congress seek to implement their vision for the country, Democrats are looking at moving forward in the wake of last November's election. Democratic leaders from across the country picked Ken Martin as the Democratic National Committee's new chair at the committee's winter meeting outside of Washington, D.C. earlier this month. Martin enters the national role after leading the Minnesota Democratic Farmer Labor Party. Grant Tennille is the chair of the Democratic Party of Arkansas and backed Martin for the national job. Tennille says Democrats have to start focusing on selling their message to voters now, as compared to waiting for the weeks leading to Election Day.
The larger ecosystem is screaming all kinds of nonsense at people all the time. And if we're not there in person to say, wait a minute, you don't really think that, let's talk it through, then those conversations aren't happening if we're not showing up to have them.
Two Arkansas political figures were unsuccessful in their efforts to serve in DNC leadership positions. Former congressional candidate Quintessa Hathaway did not receive a single vote supporting her committee chair bid. Former gubernatorial candidate Chris Jones sought one of 3 vice chair positions. His campaign failed to receive enough support before his name was removed from the ballot after a second round of votes. And that'll do it for this edition of Arkies in the Beltway for the week of February 9th, 2025. You can stay up to date with all news involving Arkansas at arkansasonline.com. You can get in touch with me on social media. My handle across most platforms is @AlexHouseThomas, and you can also find me on Blue Sky. Special thanks, as always, to the team down in Little Rock. I'm Alex Thomas, and this has been Arkies in the Beltway. Thanks for listening.